I spent over 30 years in the belly of the healthcare beast, and for most of that time I told my patients exactly what the government told me. Watch the butter, trim the fat, stick to the skinless chicken breast. Well, the tide's not just turning, it's crashing. Nina Teicholz just dropped a piece in The Hill that essentially calls for an end to the war on saturated fat. And honestly, as a functional medicine coach who sees the metabolic wreckage every day, it's about time. Hi, Dr. Brian here, retired physician and founder of Health Without Risk. Nina Teicholz wrote this little book, The Big Fat Surprise, in 2014. She points out something we've known in the functional world for years. Our 50-year experiment with low-fat diets has been a total disaster. Look at the numbers. In 1980, when the first guidelines came out, obesity rate was at 15%, and today it's at 40%. She highlights the 7 countries study by Ansel Keys. We now know he cherry-picked his data. He ignored countries like France and Germany, places where they live on butter and meat but have remarkably low heart disease rates. We built our entire national food pyramid on a house of cards, and we're all paying the price in chronic disease. Let's talk shop for a second. The biggest fear has always been low-density lipoprotein, LDL. Nina makes a great point here. Yes, saturated fat can raise your LDL levels, but it specifically raises the large buoyant particles, not the small dense ones that actually cause the junk in your arteries. Plus, it raises your high-density lipoprotein, or HDL, your good protector. I've seen this firsthand because I did it when I turned 50. When people ditch processed carbs and vegetable oils and go back to real whole animal fats, their energy returns, their brain fog lifts, and their metabolic markers often move in the right direction for the first time in years. I know because it happened to me. Plus, I lost 42 pounds in short order. What's coming, and Nina mentions this, is that the new dietary guidelines are about to drop. We finally have leadership that is potentially calling out this medical dogma. We might actually see the 10% limit on saturated fat lifted. This would change everything from what our kids eat in school to what they serve you in the hospital, all of which is horrible for our health. Here's my take. Don't wait for a government pamphlet to tell you what's healthy. Just use your common sense. We replace butter with plastic margarines and vegetable oils that go rancid before they even hit the shelf. We replaced eggs with sugary cereal. How's that working out? It's time to stop fearing the food our ancestors lived on. If you're over 50 and struggling with your weight or your energy, maybe it's time to stop fighting the fat and start fighting the processed junk frankenfood. For any of you who are science nerds like me, and because I spent over 40 years looking at clinical data, I can't help myself. We have to talk about the PURE study. It followed over 135,000 people globally. We're talking about 18 different countries on 5 continents. The data is screaming at us, but for years the policymakers kept their earplugs in. Here's what they found. A high carbohydrate intake was actually associated with a higher risk of total mortality. Meanwhile, people eating more fat, including saturated fat, actually had a lower risk of total mortality. The very thing we were told to avoid, saturated fat, was actually linked to a lower risk of stroke. It didn't increase heart attacks. It didn't increase cardiovascular death. It did the opposite of what the 1980 guidelines predicted. When we swapped butter for bread and pasta, we didn't just get heavier, we increased our risk of dying early. It's a sobering realization. It also reminds me of something Dr. James DiNicolantonio, a cardiovascular researcher out of Kansas City, always says. He boils it down to one simple sentence that I think everyone needs to hear. Quote, "Don't blame the butter for what the bread did," unquote. We spent decades stripping the fat off our plates and replacing it with heart-healthy grains and low-fat snacks. And then we wondered why our insulin levels were skyrocketing and our waistlines were expanding. We were blaming the wrong culprit. Like and share this video, and I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you made the switch back to whole fats like butter or eggs? What happened to your energy levels or your labs when you did that? Remember to follow or subscribe to Health Without Risk, where we explore options for better health you won't hear from mainstream medicine. Health reimagined, risk removed. Thanks for watching. Bye.